Men in your 20s, avoid getting a girlfriend unless you meet a unicorn that alters your life.
Quickly, as a fine babe in Christ, why settle when it comes to men?
3 huge red flags to look out for on girls you never want to date.
Because I know some of you women out here have been making these men so spoiled.
Well, here we are.
What's good, peeps? It's your boy JP back at it again with another video, and today we are doing a reaction video to Cole Hastings. Sorry if I butchered your name, bro, but I think that's how you pronounce it. But either way, I know it looks a little different. I normally record off of my camera. This is the camera I use for my YouTube videos, and I don't know, something's wrong with the HDMI port. I don't know if it's a port or the or the actual cord, but either way, we gotta keep the show rolling, so we're gonna do that. But today's video is why Gen Z is terrified of intimacy. So hey, I'm a late millennial, so hey, we gonna just see what's going on. I'm not too far from Gen Z, so it is what it is. But before we get into the video, make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Join the Prosper Gang. We keeping it PG. There's a whole lot of prosperity going on around this mug, so do that for me. Hit the like button. It helps the channel out a lot. So without further ado, let's just get into the video.
Men in your 20s, avoid getting a girlfriend unless you meet a unicorn that alters your life.
Quickly, as a fine babe in Christ, why settle when it comes to men?
3 huge red flags to look out for on girls you never want to date.
Because I know some of you women out here have been making these men so spoiled.
Well, here we are. 63% of men and 34% of women in the US between the ages of 18 to 29 report being single. Roughly 6 in 10 single.
I'm in that 18, 20. No, I'm not. My bad. I'm 31. My bad. Keep going.
Adults say they are not looking for a relationship or dates, and an estimated 1 in 3 young adults living today will never get married. If you're in your teens or even your 30s, it probably seems obvious to you why this is the case. As women now collect nearly 60% of bachelor's degrees and the income gap narrows, they can support themselves much easier and have the opportunity to be more selective with the potential partners they choose. On top of that, dating apps, which are now the most common way young people find relationships, leave little room for anyone who doesn't know how to optimize their profile, even if they're attractive and confident in real life. And of course, a lot more of our time is now spent alone, which lowers the chances of us meeting someone we genuinely connect with. But those aren't the aspects I want to focus on today. Today, I want to talk about this underlying fear of being intimate that I've observed amongst a lot of Gen Z. Based on the general feelings of both the people I've talked to in real life and online, it's clear to me that Gen Z is terrified of getting close to someone and therefore potentially getting hurt. So let's explore.
In my opinion, I think it's a lot to do with the algorithmic. I don't even know that's a word, but the algorithmic lifestyle that we have. Like I said, I don't even know that's a word, but rock with me. So everything in our life is catered to an algorithm, whether it's not everything, but everything online. So all the apps you use, all the social media apps you use, YouTube, Instagram, X, social Snapchat, if you still use that, all of them, right? They kind of cater to your algorithm. And because we be on these devices as much as we do, shoot, I'm using my device to record this video, as much as we be on these devices as much as we do, that it makes it hard for us to be in a situation to where we're not hearing echo chambers. And I think that because we want to hear echo chambers, it just wanting to be in an intimate relationship where you would have to hear somebody else's perspective on life that has a different outtake on the way they see life, just makes it like, nah, I don't want to go through all that effort. Like, you just don't want to deal with it. And I think that's a major reason on why we don't want to engage in relationships with the opposite sex as much.
or where that fear came from and how it's affecting everybody's ability to find a partner, because it might just be the most important factor we need to consider if we want to repair this worsening dating crisis. There are two archetypes we need to create and dissect if we want to get to the bottom of this: the irrationally fearful and the rationally fearful. The person who is irrationally fearful of dating has never been in a serious relationship before. They may have given their fair share of attempts in the dating scene and gotten close to an official relationship, but due to their infrequent, unsuccessful experiences, they've decided that pursuing this any further is too risky or not worth it. Conversely, the rationally fearful has a concrete reason for fearing intimacy. They've been in relationships in the past, opened up, and gotten their heart broken, whether that was through getting dumped, cheated on, or abused. Now, obviously, both of these archetypes exist to varying degrees in real life. You probably identify with one of the two, or maybe even both of them. But what's really changed are the narratives being fed to them and how that affects their ability to develop and find a relationship in the future. In the past, when either archetype was scared to put themselves out there and find a potential partner, one of two approaches would happen. The first, and probably more common, was that eventually they'd get peer pressured enough to do it even if they weren't really ready yet. Someone close to them, whether a friend or family member, would either force them to find a good partner or teach them how to maturely move through their fears and stop being so scared of whatever gender they were attracted to. Now, did this approach lead to a lot of poor marriages that probably should have never happened?
Probably.
Yes. When it was more socially taboo to not be married by the time you reached your 30s, such as the baby boomer era, the divorce rates in America reached an all-time high. And from this perspective, the fact that there's less of a taboo around forcing yourself to be with someone who you might find out later is manipulative or abusive is a net positive. And
I think that's the pro and con with Gen Z. The pro with Gen Z is that Gen Z is probably the most mentally, socially aware generation that probably has almost ever lived. When it comes to the mental health state and doing things more mentally satisfactory, I guess is what you can say it, they're being more mentally aware about their decisions and not just making decisions based off tradition, or they're really testing the status quo on the way they go about living life, right? They're breaking new gens. They're not just following basic traditions, right? That's the good thing about it. The bad thing about it is, now that they chose to break that curse, or break, I ain't gonna say a curse, but now they chose to break that tradition, now they have to rewrite the way it's being done. And because they don't know what they're doing, because most of them are so young, they're not having kids, they're not buying homes, they're not staying in traditional jobs, they're not finding love, they're buying pets. And like I said, I'm not too far from Gen Z. I'm like a few years off. So though I'm a millennial, I'm closer to a Gen Z than I am a middle age millennial, or whatever the case you want to call it, right? So I can identify with Gen Z in some ways. So I can't really talk shit because I'm like damn near them too, right? So I could get it, right? But this is a good balance I guess you want to find. But we'll get into the rest of that with this video.
One of the things that is actually good about the modern dating scene is that people are really waiting to find the right person and to make sure they're mature enough to get into a relationship, to be able to work through it, and to get to the point where maybe they get married. And I think that's part of the reason why.
But I think they're smart and dumb at the same time. Like, hear me out. Like, some people are too smart for their own good. They're smart enough to not make the wrong decision, but they're not humble and realistic enough to make a reasonable decision. I'm not saying the right decision. Hear me. There's a difference between making the wrong decision, which we've seen traditions before us. But just because you're not making the wrong decision don't mean that you're being realistic enough to make a reasonable decision. And sometimes reasonable decisions leads to the most realistic and honorable decisions that you tend to like, because you're going to settle with something, but you got to be reasonable enough to settle with something you can be okay with in the long term, and that's what they're not doing.
we're now seeing some of the lowest divorce rates we ever have. But still, even through that inherently broken approach, a lot of people found their person, a person they never would have found had they been given the opportunity to stay scared forever. And that's not me justifying the peer pressure approach. It's me stating the rare, unlikely outcome of it sometimes working because it will be relevant later in the video. The second approach one of the archetypes might have used was how they saw relationships play out around them in real life. Depending on how ideal those examples were and what the people closest to them that they trusted told them about how to find a relationship and treat their partner, they changed their beliefs about relationships and, as a result, changed themselves. And this led to many of them pursuing and creating a relationship they might not have otherwise. This approach also produced mixed results. If they grew up watching their parents in a really terrible relationship, or they just had friends who could get into relationships but treated their partners like trash and that gave them bad advice, then they could have found themselves in shitty relationships sometimes. But again, pushing through those initial fears that every young person has when it comes to relationships, I believe was more common due to this approach. So in other words, no matter what approach was acted upon by the two archetypes, the driving influences almost always came from someone in real life who was already in a relationship.
But I feel like people have this like get it right once and that's it, like mindset. You're going to mess up just like anything in life. Any aspect in life, you're going to try and fail. Business, you're going to try and fail. This YouTube stuff, I thought I had it right with this camera. Then the damn USB, the damn HDMI don't want to work today. Now I got to use my phone. You know, it's trial and error, but you're going to have to keep your will to want it to work is what's going to keep you going. And like this is, like I say, this is the perfect example. I had the camera, it was supposed to work today. For whatever reason, it chose not to work. So now I'm trying it out with my phone. Based off the results I get, I might be like, dang, I would just use my phone. Like, screw trying to connect the batteries, and like when I got a gig, I gotta take my camera off, hook it up to my rig and carry it, you know. Now it's like, you know what? Plug my phone up, keep it going. My phone is more consistent and it can just work with my computer, just Bluetooth, boom, 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 and we done. Before you know it, now I got a whole new setup. Who knows, right? But the thing is, what I'm trying to say is everything is trial and error. You just keep going until you figure out what works for you, but you only know when you try things out, dang, that didn't work. But maybe if I have a problem-solving mindset, but what happened is everybody thinks about what they want. They're not trying to serve. Problem-solving is a form of serving. You got to serve the other person, just how the other person has to serve you. But like I said, we get into this fixed state where everybody is me, 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 me. How can I get the best results for me without thinking about how can I be a best result for somebody else, just how they can do for myself?
Those were the narratives they followed. Now, let's contrast that with today's youth. What each archetype is being fed is the same idea, but how it influences their pursuit of future relationships and their mindset toward relationships is slightly different. And it begins with a single concept: the projection bubble augmentation. Sorry, I know you're probably thinking, what the hell does that even mean? And to that I say, I just wanted to make it sound mysterious and cool so you would feel compelled to keep listening. It will make more sense soon. But first I want to talk about today's sponsor, David. I usually find it very hard to stay in
homie. But we don't need to know about David. That David ain't paying me. Maybe one day they will. And then we will all talk about David. And hopefully
let me ask you this. What demographic is the most likely to create content centered around dating advice? And what demographics dating advice is the most likely to get heard by the greatest amount of people? Well,
women. If you asking me honestly, I feel like if women talk about dating more, it gets heard by the masses. And because that's their like, I feel like a lot of women talk about dating. Like, if you look at podcasts, you look at TV shows, a lot of that is around love, and that's what women like to talk about, and that's what women are really engaged into. So I feel like they do that. Obviously, they talk about other stuff, but you know what I mean? And because people want women, they tend to listen to them. I don't know. That's just me.
Unlike in the past, where the answer to that question usually was people who are already married or in relationships, the biggest influencers now are the influencers. And these influencers online usually have little to no dating experience, really terrible dating advice, or both.
A lot of you ask me how you can become more mysterious, so here's how. The easiest thing to do is to reduce exposure so she doesn't see you all the time. It's even better if you just had an amazing date and then you disappear for a while until she messages you.
The question you might be wondering is why? Why is it that the low quality content from inexperienced influencers that only makes you more fearful and untrustworthy of the people you're attracted to is the content that is most popular? This is where the concept of projection bubbles augmenting comes into play. You see, whether we're consciously aware of it or not, all of us are committing confirmation bias every day of our lives. This is when we subconsciously seek out information that favors our pre-existing beliefs or values while downplaying or dismissing any contradictory information. For example, let's say Archetype 1 tries to ask a girl out and they get rejected. And because they don't have any positive role models in their life, that rejection forms the belief in their head that something is wrong with them and they are not worthy of being loved. Due to this, they might turn to social media and search, "Why do I keep getting rejected?" And guess what the first video they decide to click on tells them? Unless you're in the top 1% of men, you're going to get rejected and she's not going to respect you. It could have been the case that within this video, there might have been some genuinely good advice, like taking care of yourself shows other people that you have respect for yourself and take life seriously, which makes you more desirable, but Archetype 1 let that advice slip in one ear and out the other. Instead, they only focused on the words that confirmed how that rejection made them feel about themselves.
Right.
It confirmed that they're not good enough to find a relationship. Now let's go over an example with our.
And this is the problem with this is where a problem solving, in my opinion, mindset comes in. And granted, he has a problem solving mindset because he looked for a problem, he looked for a solution to a problem, but what he did is he dwelled into the issue instead of trying to overcome it. And being being optimistic and also being self-determined can also get to better results. You cannot be a person that dwell in misery. Like, you have to want to be better. You have to think, if this person has 2 arms and 2 legs and they figured it out, by God means I'm going to figure it out too. Whether that hurts, whether it's a lot of work I gotta put in. Sometimes you gotta put in more work than the next person. Sometimes it just works for you, right? But by all means, if you want to make it happen, you're going to make it happen. Don't dwell. That's what separates boys from men, in my opinion, is ones that dwell on what they can't do, and the ones that make the necessary changes and the necessary precautions to become whatever they want to be. So whether that's the top 1%, which is complete bullcrap, like what it is people not. The world hasn't changed that much, despite the technology, despite all the people haven't changed that much. Yeah, that way they might want to go about things have changed, but they really have not. People are still people at its core. Just gotta know how to get to it.
Archetype 2. Maybe Archetype 2, after getting cheated on, goes to social media to try to find out why they got cheated on or how to get over it. The advice they listen to? You are what you attract. If you got cheated on, it's because you're not at the point in life yet where you can attract someone who doesn't cheat on you. AKA, you're not good enough. Or maybe they'll just rifle through stories of other people getting cheated on, further confirming their bias that most people aren't trustworthy. And as many of you already know, there are cheating stories aplenty on social media.
Right.
Not only are we biased to seek out information that confirms what we already believe, but humans also tend to have a bias toward negative information. So when a cheating gets posted, 9 times out of 10, more people are going to engage with it over a post of a happy couple, therefore forcing it into even more people's algorithms. But here's where it gets even more interesting, because it turns out that the influencers peddling this garbage advice hold the same beliefs as one of the 2 archetypes, which is why they make content centered around this advice. In other words, they're just as fearful of intimacy as their consumers. So this is the projection bubble augmentation. young, good-looking people projecting their own struggles they've had in dating are the ones making the most amount of low-quality relationship advice on the internet, which the archetypes flock to since it confirms their pre-existing projections. And through this, both the creator and the consumers reinforce each other's behaviors through their engagement. When creators see that this type of content does well, they are more likely to make that content in the future, especially if there's tons of comments in those videos from the archetypes encouraging them that they're right, and that the same thing has happened to them. It's a symbiotic relationship where the creator doesn't know how to heal, but has confirmation from the archetypes that they should keep posting this low quality content and therefore not heal, which then leads the archetypes to not heal too and become ever more fearful of relationships. This bubble augments and augments until eventually it even starts reaching people teetering on the outskirts of the archetype, the ones who still have hope but need more guidance on how to improve. You might be able to relate to being on the outskirts here. Have you ever had trouble in a relationship and you initially thought that something must be wrong with you and you just need to improve, and you hadn't yet given up on relationships? Maybe you thought to yourself, I know there's someone out there for me. I just need to keep going. But then you heard enough advice about how you need to have your whole life together before you start dating, or a bunch of horror stories about people getting abused and cheated on, and you became extremely averse to any sort of closeness between you and someone else. That's how dangerous these bubbles can be. Perhaps one of the most vivid examples of how dangerous this can be is seen in YouTuber The Wizard Liz. Liz is known for her content about building confidence, manifestation, and attracting your dream life, which has grown her channel to over 8 million subscribers. But she also occasionally makes advice for women, specifically on how to attract a rich man who spoils you.
Also, if you have a man that's constantly showing off how much wealth he has to you or how much he has, ask him to transfer it to you.
I kind of consider this content like the red pill, but for women. They share a lot of the same internal values, like dating multiple people at once, trying to seem mysterious and get the person you're attracted to be competitive and try to work for you, but the end result is just slightly different. However, that's not even what I want to focus on as it pertains to this video. What I want to focus on is her recent marriage scandal. If you don't know about this, Liz was on a layover in Athens, and a former Fortnite content creator by the name of Landon MC forgot his bag where Liz was sitting, somehow in the same airport in Athens. If that coincidence wasn't weird enough, they ended up exchanging contact information. Then Landon goes on to tell her he feels like he manifested her, and within 36 hours of knowing her, tells her he loves her and he knows that he's going to marry her.
Who said I love you first?
Oh my god, I told this what's a creature?
Creature. This thing over here.
I told this woman that I loved her within 36 hours of knowing her.
First off, if Liz, who presents herself as this relationship expert, couldn't see the issues within all of that, then what does that say about the validity of her advice? But it gets
manifestation. It is.
Worse, within a year of them being married, Landon admits to have cheated on her after he already got her pregnant, and they end up getting divorced. Yeah, the whole story is pretty damn crazy. In the last video she posted,
because people are still human, despite manifestation. Stupid.
Is a Q&A with him where they're both giving some incredibly ironic advice.
It's not a good partnership if the person is going to choose someone else over you. That defeats the whole point. But forgiveness is a big thing. So if you have ever had a trust issue come up, you got to learn how to forgive and work through that. Otherwise, that'll just turn into crippling insecurity that you suffer with.
Depends what the trust issue was.
Now, I'm not bringing this up to say it's Liz's fault she got cheated on. Of course it's not. But if you claim to have the amount of relationship knowledge you do, knowledge that gets pushed out to millions of people, and the way that Landon was moving didn't raise your eyebrows, I'm not sure I can consider you qualified to give this type of advice. And yet, these types of people are the exact types of people that many young people are now listening to and taking in their word as gospel. The way her audience responded to this is extremely telling of the relationship they had with the Wizard Liz and with themselves. You give an ugly guy a chance, he thinks he rules the world. Billie Eilish. You made him special, Liz. Now he's nothing but an average guy. Some people want to be close to you, to copy your magic. Liz.
That's that parasocial shit that we got going on that we gotta just stop. And that's how you know people are messed up that they be that involved into other people crap. Like, granted, I'm doing this for content purposes, you know what I mean? But to be that involved in somebody else's crap, you have to have a bad parasocial relationship. And I fear for the people that would date you, knowing somebody else has your mind to that degree. That's just scary. But hey, shout out to bro for this video. Look, y'all go and check him out. Cole Hastings. You know, go and check him out. Go and subscribe. I've been subscribed to him. He's really intelligent. Shout out to homie. Yeah. Y'all go do that. But make sure you hit the like and subscribe button. Join the Prosper Gang. There's a whole lot of prosperity going on around this mug. And remember, there is nothing impossible to they who try. Till next time I'm out, deuce.